I'd just like to do a little bit more on this case with South Yorkshire Police. There is a huge amount to this story, and the implications are simply vast. I can say to the audience that apart from what South Yorkshire Police might be doing, and of course against the background of the grooming gangs and Rotherham, that every other area where there's been problems with the abuse of children, and we've also had the ICSA inquiry, which was supposed to get to the bottom of things. What we are seeing is more and more information coming to the surface from inside the system itself, inside the police, inside bodies such as the Independent Office for Police Conduct or the National Crime Agency or government departments or the CPS. They hold the data which proves that those organisations or people within those organisations, including the police, were covering up the abuse of children. And the story is very clear. And what is so significant is when this particular gentleman, we're going to call him MB, took the trouble over a great many years to collect this information and process it, and he's well qualified to do this. The story that was emerging was of widespread cover-up of child abuse through the very organisations that say they're there to protect children. And by the time you get to the higher levels, you get into the CPS, you get into the higher level of the police, and you get into the government itself, then what you're actually looking at is a system which is utterly corrupt from top to bottom, and it's prepared to abuse children and then attempt to cover its tracks. But there is now so much information coming to the surface that the authorities themselves, including the police, are beginning to get very, very fearful, because as they try and squash one part, I need to get my hand on camera, they're pushing down here, up pops another piece of information here, and they're becoming more and more panicky. So this was a brutal raid on a man's home. He has used public information, he's used freedom of information requests over a great many years to lever out the public information demonstrating this cover-up of the abuse of children. And then he effectively gets his door kicked in. The police are in his house, they take all of his computers. He gets accused of a crime. He doesn't know what that is at the moment. So he's held, he's interrogated, he's lost all of his data, and now he's waiting to see whether South Yorkshire Police are going to charge him with a crime. It's so appalling. Some of this is difficult to describe. But if we just show some of the slides that I had for the news, again, just take you through a little bit slower pace. What's going on here is that South Yorkshire Police know they are caught in this rat trap with other police forces, where it's a fact that police officers were not only involved in the cover-up of abuse, they were involved in the abuse of youngsters themselves. So initially, South Yorkshire was working in partnership with the, quote, Independent Office for Police Conduct. I'm deliberately putting these words together because then you can see what a mess this is. But because it was becoming evident that the public were not buying what South Yorkshire Police were claiming about independent investigations, they've now had to push it on to the National Crime Agency to take over from the Independent Office of Police Conduct. The claim being that the National Crime Agency is going to be independent in its investigations. However, as Mr. MB discovered, officers from within South Yorkshire Police are working alongside both of those agencies. So actually there's no independence, there's no separation of powers. And now the fact that he's had all of his documentary evidence showing that the police were up to no good, that's been stolen. the only conclusion that an ordinary member of the public can make, or the man on the Clapham omnibus, is to say the police have stolen this data in order to try and protect themselves from being fully exposed as to what's been going on. Now, this lady, Hayley Barnett, the Assistant Chief Constable, had quite a lot to say. I won't read it all, but you can at least see the detail on the screen, and you can have a look at that in your own time. But we'll do a little bit of this. Ever since the initial launch of this incredibly sensitive investigation, too right, because this is not just about the abuse of children, this is about the cover-up of the abuse of children. The victim survivors have steadfastly remained our number one priority. I'm going to say this cannot be true, because if it were to be true, they would be congratulating Mr. MB, and they would be saying, please share your information with us and take us through your evidence so that we can do our very best for these victim survivors. She goes on to say, over many months, I've had conversations at the highest level with IOPC and the NCA to ensure these courageous women truly remain at the heart of our work, and that the mode of investigation remains appropriate. Now, let's remember what South Yorkshire Police mode of investigation is. It's kicking in somebody's door and taking their evidence that there's been a cover-up. She goes on to say that concerns around the mode of investigation have put the force and not the victim survivors at the centre of the narrative. This is absolutely right, because the police now know they are coming under the spotlight for not only participation in abuse, but cover-up of abuse. And indeed, this fails, as she says, to align with a truly victim-centred investigation. I'm also mindful there's a chance that some victim survivors may be suffering in silence and unwilling to make a report as a result of South Yorkshire Police's involvement. So she knows what this is really about. This is about the police involved in the abuse themselves and then covering it up. It is for these reasons, and in mutual agreement with our partners, that I've asked the NCA to take ownership of this operational work. So here we've got the great lie, because there's no independence, because she's freely admitting she regards these other agencies as partner agencies, and they are using South Yorkshire Police in order supposedly to do their investigation. I'll just break there. Diane, I find some of this just, well, I believe it because I've seen the corruption over many years, but I have to say it's just unbelievable, the audacity and the lies that these people tell, the stories they spin in order to cover up what's really been going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And even though the circumstances are a bit different, I was listening to all that, thinking about the Frenethi survivors that we've been working with for a long time now. Because if you look at the fact that, first of all, they weren't included even in the child abuse inquiry results, that they're not eligible for redress because they weren't abused for long enough. And back when David Scott was covering the Frenethi survivors a while back, it's on the UK Column website, for example, that Nicholas Fairburn might have been implicated as being one of the men who were up at Frenethi doing what he was doing with the young girls at the time. Of course, there's no evidence for sure about who was there, but if we're asking the Scottish government or the UK government or Glasgow Corporation, in the case of Frenethi, to really investigate what happened, if they are the ones that were up abusing the girls up in the school at that time, it's the same sort of situation. Like, how can they really be investigating themselves when they themselves are the perpetrators? It absolutely will not lead to what the survivors deserve.
Yeah, absolutely. Just we'll continue through her words so that we've covered everything she said. She went on to say, however, we're acutely aware that while our culture, our processes and our workforce here at South Yorkshire Police have transformed in the decades since the failings in Rotherham, the harm suffered by the victim survivors remains their reality every single day. Too right, as we've absolutely seen with the Frenethi ladies, they never forget. They never forget any hour of any day. Meanwhile, have the police really changed? Well, absolutely not. Because if they had changed, they wouldn't be kicking in somebody's door to steal evidence against their own police officers. Victim and wider public trust and confidence are treasured aspects of our policing service, and where past failings have prevented us from securing this, handing over the investigation is simply the right thing to do. I mean, it's outrageous, the arrogance in making these statements, whilst the reality of what's going on is that people who've been working to take the lid off this abuse through the police and these other agencies are themselves lifted. And, words almost fail me.
She sounds like she's due a promotion.
Probably will be head of the Met, I should think. Today's force, including the officers and staff who've been directly involved in this investigation, are appalled by the nature of the allegations that have come to light. Now, this is absolutely correct, because we know that inside not only South Yorkshire Police, but other police forces, there are officers who are absolutely appalled at what their own police force has done, and also what corrupt and criminal police officers have done within those forces. But of course, when the overall police organisation covers up these crimes, all of the police get smeared with it. So I can imagine they're appalled. She goes on to say, we've been determined to conduct this complex and extensive work on behalf of the victim survivors with, quote, professionalism, integrity and compassion. And this request is in no way a reflection of our confidence in our own abilities, nor those of our workforce to deliver this. Well, I would say that the public has got lots of questions about their ability to deliver, and they've got a lot of lack of confidence in the police's capability. And I think this is the last.
Repeat. I think you read this.
Sorry, was that repeat? Beg your pardon for that. We assure anybody in South Yorkshire who has suffered sexual abuse that if they choose to report this to us, whether it happened recently or many years ago, we will always be here for you. We will listen to you. We will take appropriate action, and we will do everything within our powers to make you feel safe and supported. So, Diane, those are the glib words, and they almost reflect the sort of words that we've heard out of Police Scotland, certainly other police forces here in England. But the reality is that underneath those glib words, nothing changes, and the organisation simply produce a wall of silence to the victims.
Yeah, they just continue to avoid and defer and delay and say this is not part of the stage of this particular inquiry. We can't do this. However, post some hurty words on X and you're straight off to prison. So that's what we're dealing with these police right now.
Yeah.
She didn't say anything about securing justice. So she said, if you've been sexually abused, we'll make you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Well, what else are you going to do?
Well,
you're not supposed to secure justice.
Probably she's a bit nervous of the word justice.
I would imagine that she
bring
is.
The police too close to it.
Yeah.
Now, what I just had here on screen was I built up this triangle. So South Yorkshire Police initially passed the buck to the Independent Office for Police Conduct to investigate the crimes of the police abusers. No mention really of the cover-ups. And now, because that wasn't working, now this is going to be passed over to the National Crime Agency. But these people are all working in partnership. And I've labelled this omerta, which is a word that actually came up in relation to crimes of a prolific paedophile in France, where the local people said there was a wall of silence between the police and the local authority and the courts in order to protect the abusers. And the word originally comes from mafia rules, that you can't speak out and blow the whistle on your own men, your own capos. So I think this is very appropriate, that basically it's a wall of silence these people are maintaining, and we have to do our best. That's the widest we UK column and people in UK and elsewhere to get the lid off this. It's simply outrageous what these police forces are doing.
Oh dear, the grim bureaucracy.
It is. It is.
Look at her. Can we get her on screen on the right? Miserable. Utterly
Well,
miserable person. And look at that black and white thing she got around her neck. Does that tell us anything?
Well,
The old checkerboard.
I don't know. I don't know. But when you look at the full length picture of her, there's just something about her that you don't get confidence that this is a woman that's going to sort something out.
She's broken individual.
A broken individual, yes, for whatever reason, I don't know. And who knows what pressure she's put under in a daily work at South Yorkshire Police. Who knows who is actually putting pressure on her to make sure the wrong result is achieved.
Yes.